Good morning, guys. Today's going to be a bit of a change of pace. I'm going to change out the impeller in my Bosch dishwasher. Now, those of you who know my channel will realize that I'm much more comfortable with automotive diagnostics and repairs, but sometimes as a homeowner you're called upon to do things that aren't necessarily in your field of expertise. So those of you who are comfortable with automotive diagnostics know that one of the first things you can do is to download the codes. Now, you can do the same thing with dishwashers. And for this particular model of dishwasher, the way to download your codes is to run through a diagnostic cycle. And the way to do that is you press this button, and power, and then you press these two buttons again. And now it's entered into a short diagnostic cycle where it'll help us with the codes. Now at the moment, the circuit is draining, and you can hear the draining working. You can hear it draining into the sink. And it takes about 30 minutes to run through a full cycle. Now you hear that loud noise. That's the problem that we're facing, and that's the problem we're going to deal with today. I'm going to stop that now because it takes too long to take it all the way through a diagnostic cycle, and I've already done it. So to get the dishwasher out, first you undo two screws here and here, and then use T20 Torx screws for the side railing, and then the dishwasher will pull out partially. Next, you turn off the water supply, and don't forget to turn off the power. Next, we'll unscrew the kick plate with screws here and here. Now the dishwasher is hooked up at three places. The first is the water inlet right here. The second is the water outlet where the dirty dishwasher goes into the drain. And the third is electric power, which is an AC cord right over here. And so, as it turns out, the water inlet is the shortest one that limits my access to pulling this out. So I'm going to disconnect this now. This is a 5/8 open end wrench, and you're going to get a little bit of water coming out here, but if you remember to turn off the water, you're not going to have very much. So we'll undo that now. Now sometimes the device can be a bit tricky to get out if you don't have the legs down, and so I'm going to lower these legs down so it doesn't catch on the top. There's a third leg on the back of this dishwasher, and sometimes it'll catch these pipes or wires, and so it's sometimes helpful to tip the device forward, and that lifts the leg off of the wire and allows you to get it out. Now my second shortest cable is this one here. This is the wastewater drain, and to get that off we need to undo this piece of sheet metal. So now here's the wastewater drain hose here. We need to get this undone, and first we pull this black plastic cap out of the way, and then we pull the hose down, and of course there's a bit of water in it. So in the back here there's a plastic connector, a cover plate. We just need to take a screwdriver and pry that little cover plate off, and then the wastewater drain hose will be free. The next step in terms of diagnostics is to make sure that the drain hose is not plugged, and to make sure the water supply hose is good as well. So to be sure the drain hose is not plugged, you can put your mouth on that and blow the water out, make sure it's patent, or if you don't like to put your mouth on something like this, you can use compressed air or a compressor. But basically you need to make sure there's no blockage of that drain. Similarly with the supply hose, I would put the plastic end of the supply hose into a bucket and turn the water back on and make sure that you're getting water, because if there's a blockage of the water supply, that could equally get the same kind of dishwasher problems. I've already done both of those steps. Okay, now I can identify a few other parts of the puzzle here. We're not going to be dealing with these devices because I've already checked them out and they're good, but just for identification purposes, the small device with the blue solenoid on it is the water supply solenoid, or water supply valve they call it. And I've done an ohm check on that, and it's within specs. And similarly, the drain pump is behind it there, and I've ohmed that out as well, and both those devices are good. But that may not apply in your case, and you may need to work on those. I need to work on the separate circulation motor, which is on the other side of the dishwasher. So we'll take this galvanized steel protection plate again, T20 Torx. I'm going to drop the camera and do that, but I'll take off both those screws there. Okay, next step is to take off this sound insulation, and As you can see, you're on a lot of wires here, so you need to make absolutely sure that your power is off. This little plastic protector is just in the way, so we'll take it out of the way. And that's our circulation motor right there. Now it's worthwhile at this stage to document exactly where each wire goes. I've disconnected the ground wire to the cover plate, and step by step you undo these wires, and you're going to need to retrace your steps, and so you need to be really careful about this. If you mess this stage up, and if eventually you do have to take it into a repair facility, they'll be lost not knowing where everything has to go. And so you need to photograph where these wires go, or in my case I'm videotaping the work so that if at some point in the future a professional needs to take over, they know what you've done. In addition, I need to get this motor out of here, and so I'm going to disconnect these cover plates right here just because the wires are in my way. Okay, now let me show you something here. These connectors have a little tiny metal tine right there, and you take your, to undo these, you take your thumb and you press down on that tine, and that allows it to open from the connector piece. So pretty much all of them on this device are like that. You just take your fingernail and press down on it and pull, and it unhooks easily. Okay, here's the circulation motor, and I need to get this out. Now I'm going to call attention to this huge capacitor just on the left hand side. And this capacitor could give you a nasty jolt. And so when removing this, do the best you can to keep your fingers away from this. Capacitors can retain charge for some time after being disconnected from power. And so my power's been off for some time. I'm going to rotate this entire motor clockwise. And as I do, it should come disconnected from the housing that it's attached to. Now there's one more thing here, and that is there's a little metal clip in, or a little plastic clip right in there, right there. And we're going to, as we rotate, we're going to press down on this plastic clip, and that'll allow the motor to rotate clockwise. So we're going to rotate it about 45 degrees or so, and then what will happen is the motor will slide backwards towards me. Okay, I've got my motor rotated very nicely, but there's clearly not enough clearance to get it out. And so what I need to do next is I need to lift the body of the dishwasher off of the base. And to do that, I need to remove the connections that hold the two together. That includes removing the door. And I'm going to remove this screw and that screw on that side. And we'll lift the body off, and I'll put a piece of 2x4 in here to hold it up. So I was hoping to get by without having to remove the outer door, but it looks like I have to do that. So on each side I need to remove the cable that holds this. So I take some preferably gooseneck pliers and lift that up, and then this just hangs down there. I'll do that on the other side. Same thing on the other side, you just take this clip off. Remember which way it goes in. It goes in like that. And then this, lift it up, down. So the first time I did this, I removed the front fascia panel on the door. I'm going to try and do it without doing that. I need to undo this screw here that holds the door in place, and I'll do the same on the other side. And underneath here, there are two other screws. This one here, and then on the other side, we'll take those off. So this next bit is a little bit awkward because I don't have 3 sets of hands. I'm going to lift the body up. And slide a block of wood in there. Now I've got enough clearance that we should be able to lift the motor right out of here. Push all the wires out of the way, and it's been rotated. As you can see, there's some water in there. watch out for that capacitor. There we are. Okay, so my next step is to undo the this plastic connection. So what I'm going to do here, this is a 5/16 nut driver. I'm holding the fan in the back, and then I'll just rotate that counterclockwise and take this off. And there we have it. Sorry, I'm trying to get it right for you. Okay, there's the two bits there. So here's the old part, and you can see these little plastic teeth are bent. I don't know if you can appreciate that. But what's been happening is that this connection here has been lost, and it's been spinning, creating a noise and a lack of pumping. And so what we're going to do, we're going to replace the whole part of it. Now I think this has been a fairly regular problem with these Bosch dishwashers, and so the new part is not identical. The new part over here is a different design, smaller, and hopefully we'll get around that problem. So you can see the plastic tines are larger, and they're nicely tied together, and you can see the impeller size is smaller as well. So this is the old spacer, and you can see it has a little notch in it. At first I thought that notch was a defect, but in fact it's supposed to be there. And this spacer is not quite symmetrical, where the bevel on the inside towards the motor is a little less angled than the bevel on the outside. And so you want to put the new one in with the same pattern. You can see the new one has a little notch as well. So this came with a new spring and O-ring, and so I took it out. It was a little sticky, a little tricky to get out, and so I ended up having to pry it out with these pliers. And the new one should just slide in like that. I'll just clean it off first and then slide it in there. Okay, now in terms of reinstallation, I want to show you something. This notch right here needs to dovetail with the reciprocal notch inside the rest of the housing. And until you do that, it's not going to come together correctly. So make sure you align it correctly. So here's the reciprocal notch right here, this thing here. And I find getting this motor in place to be the most difficult part of the whole thing. Just have patience and avoid frustration and just gradually ease it into place. Then once it's into place, rotate counterclockwise until it's situated vertically. The other key thing to remember about putting this back into place is that the last step is rotating the housing counterclockwise until that plastic tab clips. You see that plastic tab? And so that should be the last step. So you want the plastic to be pressed in and the motor rotated first, slide it in, and then final step is rotate the whole motor housing counterclockwise until it's situated vertically the way it is. If you do it that way, it should work. So of course the last part of this is to put everything back into order. You've got a whole series of screws and nuts, and if you were methodical and you did things in the correct order and paid attention to how things went together, you shouldn't have any trouble getting back together again. So let's do that and we'll see how it functions. Of course it's frustrating when cords are too short, and in this case it's the supply hose is a bit short, and if I just slide it in there it'll be hard to retrieve. And so a little trick I use a little piece of string. I let that dangle out into the middle of the floor, and that way I can pull on the string and the cord will come out for me. Everything else seems to be back into place, and so now we just have to jimmy it into place and then tie it in and see if it works. Okay, one other thing I've seen people ask is, what does this thing do? That's a nut that adjusts the height of the wheel in the back. There are 3 legs in this device, 2 in the front and 1 in the back. And this one, you turn this one back and forth, it adjusts the height of the back leg. And I just leave it alone. I don't do anything with it because it was adjusted appropriately to begin with. Okay, I've turned the breaker back on. I'll turn the water back on. Don't forget to check for leaks before the kick plate goes back on. And now we're going to turn it on and just see what happens. There's the drain phase. Not seeing any leaks yet. Now we're in the supply phase. I can feel water going through the tank, and you notice that that funny noise we had is now gone. So I think the problem's solved. We're going to watch this closely over the next few days. Put the cover plate back on in a day or so after I'm sure that there's no leaks here, and we should be good to go. Okay, well, we just changed out the impeller in a Bosch dishwasher, and it seems to be working fine now. I'm going to run another cycle through, and I think my wife is going to be happy. I'm going to watch really carefully for water underneath the machine after I'm all done here over the next couple of days, just to make sure there are no bad connections. Hey, I want to thank you guys for watching, and if you like this video and you want to see more of them, hit subscribe. I'd love to hear any comments people have. Thanks for watching.